Tonight, we bring you the answer to a long-time mystery. Ever drive around South Charlotte and wonder, why are there so many roads named Sharon? Or better yet, ever drive around and get lost like I have and turned around on a Sharon Road or one of the many variations of it? If you have, you're not the first and certainly won't be the last. Carolina Impact's Jason Terzes went on a mission to answer the question, who exactly is Sharon? And why are there so many roads named after her?
Baby, you can drive my car.
Driving around South Charlotte through the heart of South Park, chances are you're on Sharon Road or some other road with Sharon in its name.
People do get confused.
Just about every road in this part of town, it seems, has a Sharon theme.
And we're kind of used to it.
It all starts, of course, with Sharon Road.
My wife gets onto the Sharon, she called me out of the car and said, how do I get off of this thing?
There's Sharon View and Sharon Amity, but not to be confused with North Sharon Amity or South Sharon Amity.
Baby, you can drive my car. Yes.
There's also Sharon Road West and a plethora of others, like Sharon Lane, Sharon Avenue, Sharon Woods, Sharon Commons, Sharon Lakes, Sharon Parkway.
Beep, 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 yeah.
But that's not all. There's Sharon Township Lane, Sharon Hills, Sharon Acres, Sharon Brook, Sharon Oaks Lane, Sharon Forest, and Sharon Chase Drive. And I'm sure a few others that we're missing.
There are more Sharons out there than you can shake a stick at.
Baby, you can drive my car.
By our count, there's at least 25 of them. Confusing? Yeah, it ought to be.
So much so that I was once on a half marathon that started in the city and went south along Sharon Road and Sharon View and said, oh, now I know where these are.
So that begs the questions. Who exactly is Sharon? And why are all these roads named after her?
I actually collect wrong answers. One of my favorite wrong answers is that Sharon must have been Queen Charlotte's sister. Great answer, but it's wrong. Another one, I keep hearing that Sharon must have been a woman who knew a lot of the developers here in Charlotte. That's not the case.
Turns out Sharon isn't a person, but rather a place referenced in the Bible. It sits along the coastal plain of Palestine, now modern-day Israel, along the Mediterranean Sea.
If you look in the book of Isaiah, it talks about Sharon in the Holy Land. I think it is Sharon, the plains of Sharon, which are in the shadow of Mount Carmel. The Bible verses talk about it being a place that is blossoming. Your cattle can find water, your crops will grow, and a good place to live for a believer.
Many of Charlotte's early settlers in the 17 and 1800s were Scots-Irish Presbyterians.
A group of people living in this area held a meeting in January of 1830 to decide whether they should try to form a church.
They were hoping to create a kind of a paradise on earth, a farmer's paradise.
They chose the name Sharon because Rose of Sharon in the Bible.
In 1831, Sharon Presbyterian Church opened its doors. It dates back so far, a Revolutionary War soldier, Silas Alexander, is buried in the cemetery out back.
It was an appropriate place, it was kind of a good omen to call a place Sharon, because it said this will be a place that will sustain us and that where we can stay indefinitely.
I'm not sure if there was a road here. You know, there were just little paths because there really wasn't, anything in the area. It was all farms.
Naming what eventually became the road leading from Charlotte out to the church was an easy decision.
Regarding Sharon Road, it's the road to Sharon Church.
And that also explains Sharon Amity Road, which leads to Amity Presbyterian Church, founded in 1882, and Providence Road, which leads out to Providence Presbyterian Church, which dates back to 1767.
Eventually, the area around the church became known as the Sharon community.
As maps from the early 1900s show, Sharon was at that point its own township, completely separate from Charlotte. In the 1920s, former North Carolina Governor Cameron Morrison built his Moorcroft estate just up the road from the church. This attracted other prominent residents.
But it really wasn't until after World War II when the developers were trying to attract people out to this new suburban frontier, and it had a good school, and it had some upscale people like the Morrison family, and so they tried to work Sharon into the name of every possible development.
And it wasn't just roads that developers attached the Sharon name to. It's on everything from the Sharon Elementary School to the Sharon Towers Senior Living Community, Sharon Baptist Church, Sharon Commons Subdivision, Sharon View Federal Credit Union, Sharon Academy Child Development Center, Sharon Woods Subdivision, Sharon Lakes Shopping Plaza, Sharon Crossing Apartments, Sharon Lakes Animal Hospital, Sharon Ridge Apartments, Sharon Lakes Condos, Sharon Place Condos, Sharon Lakes Medical Associates, Sharon Chase Condos, Sharon Forest Subdivision, and the Sharon Memorial Park Cemetery.
Sharon this, Sharon that, Sharon the other thing.
With so many Sharons and other roads in town that had duplicate names, the city finally put a stop to it in the 1950s.
The local police and firemen encountered problems finding the right address, and so this became a matter that came before the Charlotte Planning Commission. They ended up changing the names of 195 roads, so there were no two exact duplicates.
Church members at Sharon Presbyterian have a sense of pride that their church, their community, has had such a lasting legacy on the development of the city. But if you've ever gotten mixed up on Sharon Road, don't feel badly. It could be worse. You could be in Atlanta, where there are 71 different Peachtree streets.
Okay, we can talk a little more about it. I just love the concept that just when I thought we were bad enough with Sharon Road, I can feel good that at least I do not live in Atlanta.
Well, yeah, I mean, it could be worse because it seems like every other street in Atlanta, if you've ever been down there, is got that peach tree attached to it. But yeah, and it is confusing here for a lot of people coming from out of town or that might be visiting or new to the area, because just when you think you've got Sharon Road down, and oh no, Sharon Road turns that way, because then that way, if what you think it's going to, then that turns into Quail Hollow, or it turns into something different. So it does get very confusing.
It's happened to me many times. I found it interesting, the fact that it was named after communities. I'd have never guessed. My money was on the fact that it was Queen Charlotte's friend or sister.
Well, that was a good answer, whoever came up with it, because you'd think everything's tied in with the Queen, and well, Sharon's got to be related to Charlotte somehow. But no, it does. It goes back to the Bible, which is really kind of neat to hear how it formed, and it does make sense then with like Providence Presbyterian Church and Sharon Presbyterian Church, how it was really the church communities that settled the area, and that's how the city developed.
This is something that you've wanted to do for a long time, to tell this story, but also the concept that at least there won't be any more Sharons out there?
Well, they finally put a cap on it, so at least you can't have another Sharon Road, but I still think people can get around those little bylaws or whatever and attach Sharon. That's why there's so many different names with it. They can attach it in a different way, you know, to put it on whether it's a new community or subdivision. So I still think developers, if they want to, they probably could.
Jason Terzis, thanks so much for enlightening us today.
Absolutely, my pleasure.